The Bagel King, written by Andrew Larson, illustrated by Sandy Nichols, published by Kids Can Press. Every Sunday morning, Zeta went to Merv's bakery for bagels. Sometimes Eli went with him. Mrs. Rose would let Eli have a pickle from one of the big jars on the shelf behind the counter. Zeta said they were the best pickles in the world. Eli agreed. Usually, though, Eli stayed home, and Zeta delivered the bagels right to his door. Zeta brought bagels in winter, spring, summer, and fall. He brought them through snow, rain, heat, and gloom. Zeta had been bringing bagels for as long as Eli could remember. Eli would hear a familiar knock, knock. "Who's there?" "It's me," Zeta would say. "I've got bagels." Warm, chewy, salty. Bagels were the best thing about Sunday. One sunny Sunday morning, Eli waited for that familiar knock, knock, but it didn't come. Eli grew hungrier with each passing minute. He looked out the window, searching for Zeta, but he didn't see him. Instead, he saw Mrs. Katz. She was digging a hole in her garden. The phone rang. Eli ran to answer it. It was Zeta. He had slipped on some schmutz at Merv's. Mrs. Rose had seen it all happen from behind the counter. She called the doctor. The doctor said Zeta hurt his tuchus and had to rest at home for 2 whole weeks. Eli rushed over to Zeta's. "Are you okay?" he asked, out of breath. "Of course I'm okay," said Zeta. "But I didn't get the bagels." Eli groaned. Zeta moaned. Their bellies grumbled and growled. Knock, knock. "Who's there?" It was Zeta's neighbors, Mr. Reuben, Mr. Wolf, and Mr. Goldstick. They shuffled past Eli and into the living room, where Zeta was sitting on the sofa. "I'm hungry," said Mr. Reuben. "I'm famished," said Mr. Wolf. "Let's eat," said Mr. Goldstick. "What's going on?" asked Eli. "Every Sunday morning, your Zeta gets me a sesame seed bagel with smoked salmon," explained Mr. Reuben. "He gets me a plain bagel with cream cheese," said Mr. Wolf. "And a poppy seed bagel with pickled herring for me," said Mr. Goldstick. "Every Sunday morning, we come to your Zeta's apartment for a feast. We've been doing it for years." "Well, there's no feasting today," Zeta told them. "I fell on my tuchus." "Oi!" they exclaimed. "Are you all right?" "Of course I'm all right," said Zeta. "But what's a Sunday without bagels?" "It's just another day," Eli said with a sigh. Zeta followed the doctor's orders and rested. One day, Eli brought chicken soup. Another day, Eli brought chicken soup and a book from the library. Then, later that week, Eli brought more chicken soup and a friend. "What's with all the chicken soup?" asked Zeta. "Chicken soup makes everything better," said Eli. Zeta laughed as he rubbed his tuchus. "It makes most things better," he said. On Saturday night, Eli had bagels on the brain. Even the moon looked like a bagel all smothered with cream cheese. On Sunday morning, Eli woke up extra early and made a list. Then he added one more thing. It was going to be the perfect surprise. Merv's bakery was buzzing with business. Eli saw a few familiar faces from the neighborhood. "Good morning, Eli," said Mrs. Rose. "Would you like a pickle? And how's your Zeta?" "He's fine," said Eli. "He's resting. I'm here to get some bagels. Can you help me?" Eli gave Mrs. Rose the list. "This list looks very familiar," she said. "Except for the last item." "It's a surprise for Zeta and his friends," said Eli. "They'll love it," said Mrs. Rose, with a twinkle in her eye. Mrs. Rose prepared the order with care. She packed everything into a big brown paper bag and handed it to Eli. "Watch your step," she said, "and say hello to your Zeta for me." "I will," said Eli. "Thanks, Mrs. Rose." Eli cradled the bagels all the way to Zeta's. "Knock, knock. Who's there?" "It's me," said Eli. "Me who?" "Me, Eli. I've got bagels." "Bagels?" gasped Zeta, opening the door. "Bagels," said Mr. Reuben, delighted. Come in," said Mr. Wolf. "What a mensch," said Mr. Goldstick. "The boy's a prince." "I went to Merv's and got your usual Sunday order," said Eli. "The boy's no prince. He's a king," Zeta proudly declared. "He's the Bagel King." "Long live the Bagel King," they cheered. "And I have a little surprise," added Eli, reaching into the big brown paper bag. "I brought a jar of Merv's pickles." "All hail the mighty pickle," Zeta proclaimed. Warm, chewy, salty. Bagels were the best thing about Sunday. The best thing, that is, except for Zeta.